Well, 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 happy Wednesday to all of you joining us for this midweek extravaganza.
Ooh.
Jessie, Coffield, Emerson, Lotzia, we host this show. It is called The Sweat.
And fun fact, download the DK Live app for free. You can watch us every night at 6 o'clock Eastern, plus get even more expert fantasy analysis and play-by-play updates for your lineups during games in every sport so you don't miss a thing.
All right, speaking of experts, how about these guys? DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, Steve Buchanan, and a real-life doctor in the hizzy, Dr. Selene Parekh of the Fantasy Doctors. So, yes, we are playing NFL Injury Report right now, talking about the fantasy impact of key NFL injuries, starting with Cam Newton. Expected to sit this Sunday with a shoulder injury. So, Dr. P, he played through it for most of the year, but with the team out of the playoff hunt, they're sitting him. Any concern he may have done additional damage by playing through the injury?
So absolutely. We know that back in 2017, he had a partial tear with the rotator cuff, which kind of sits at the upper part of the shoulder and helps you rotate the arm up. We know he had that repaired in 2017. At some point, in my mind, just by watching him play, it looks like he may have retorn this or just hasn't really flared up. So by playing through this, you absolutely can make it worse. And obviously, we're seeing him concerned enough now that they're out of the playoff hunt to quiet down and sit out. I won't be surprised if he sits out the rest of the season.
So, Steve, with most season-long fantasy finals like this weekend, what does this do to Christian McCaffrey's value in Week 16?
I don't really think it makes that much of a difference. I mean, he's been utilized so much already. I mean, I don't know how much that can really change at this point. I mean, this is someone who's averaging 14 rushes a game, almost 8 targets per game. I mean, with or without Cam Newton, the Falcons have been one of the worst run defenses in the league. That doesn't change that fact at all. So I don't really feel like they're going to be mixing up much of the game plan here without Newton this week. So I feel like McCaffrey's fine. I mean, I feel like he's almost matchup proof, but then he's got a good matchup to boot this week. So I think his usage is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be really much of a difference.
Reed, do you agree with Steve?
Yeah, I agree here. If you look at Atlanta, their adjusted line yards, their DVOA, their ability to tackle these running backs behind the line of scrimmage, they all rank as, one of the worst in the league. So their run defense not that good. What you do see, though, when these starting quarterbacks go down with, obviously, with Jimmy Garoppolo back in, you have like Nick Mullins and even Fournette for that matter, when you have Cody Kessler, they stack these defenses, stack the box. Fournette saw the second most, Matt Breida saw the third, and then the week before that, Jeff Wilson saw the second most 8+ man boxes. And so these defenders obviously are going to sell out to stop a guy like Christian McCaffrey. But like Steve was saying, this guy is one of the best. His floor is so nice. And look, can he duplicate what he did to these guys earlier this season where he caught, 14 passes? Probably not the same, but he's going to be featured in this offense no matter what. So I'm not too worried about it.
Jeff, no Cam Newton. What do you think this does to Christian McCaffrey's value?
It's not good. I'm more worried than the other two guys, quite frankly. I mean, there's a lot of different factors. First of all, I mean, you just don't have a quarterback coming in with the rushing expectancy of Cam Newton anymore. That puts more pressure on Christian McCaffrey. That lets defenses just shift over to covering him out of the backfield every single down. So McCaffrey is good enough that he's still going to get, break free in some targets and some short pass routes, I have no doubt. But then you have a lesser quarterback throwing him the ball, too. So I don't like the spot personally. I think the volume is going to be there, and he might just pay off on volume alone. But no, especially for DraftKings for 1 week, I think he's going to make for a pretty good fade candidate here.
All right, well, Dr. P, we have a report coming out today that Carson Wentz had back issues even before college at his pre-draft screening, showing that it was a healed stress fracture in his back that reportedly happened during his youth. So apparently this report didn't hurt his draft stock, and current injury doesn't appear to be related, but can people be predisposed here to having this kind of injury?
So you can be predisposed to a stress fracture anywhere in the body if you have some metabolic issues. So issues such as vitamin D deficiency, some hormonal issues, sure. But that would have been picked up a long time ago for Carson Wentz. And so I don't think that's what's playing a role here. I think we're seeing two individually unrelated stress fractures and certainly major differences in timeline in his life. And so from a stress fracture perspective, I'm certainly not worried about it. Obviously, he needs a time for it to recover, and this should not play a role in his future next year with the Eagles.
Well, guys, it's already been announced that Nick Foles is going to start. So what is having him in due to the value of like Zach Ertz and the Eagles wide receivers? Steve, what do you think?
I mean, with Foles under center, Ertz is still averaging just about 10 targets per game, which is right on point what he's having all season long. I mean, in terms of fantasy output, he's only averaging 11.8 DK fantasy points, 54 receiving yards, and no touchdowns with Foles. But it's a good matchup this week. The Houston Texans have not been strong against opposing tight ends, allowing almost an average of 15 DK fantasy points per game, 64 receiving yards, and 7 touchdown scores. You can imagine that Foles is going to continue to rely heavily on Ertz because, Foles is really not that good, regardless of what Jeff says. So I just think this is a game where Ertz is still in a fine spot, regardless of if it's Wentz or if it's Foles. And, Jeff's going to say he probably prefers Foles, but, Jeff's not the smartest guy, so there it is.
Wow, Jeff, do you care to respond to that?
I don't respond to stuff that doesn't matter like Steve. So
okay.
Look, Nick Foles is starting. He's 1-0 already. Big shocker. I mean, everyone expected that. No one expected that except me. Look, Zach Ertz, he hasn't really had the connection with Nick Foles that Alshon Jeffrey has. You go back to the playoffs last year. Jeffrey caught 3 touchdown passes in the playoffs. Ertz caught 1. I mean, Ertz's volume went down a little bit. This is not the Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz connection that people are used to seeing. Nick Foles is not afraid to throw the ball downfield. People like to refer to him as a game manager. It's kind of why I get heated up about this subject. He's not really a game manager. He will flick the ball downfield, not afraid to take chances. Sometimes he has the odd bad game because of that. But look, this is very good for Alshon Jeffrey. The Texans do not have a good secondary. Nick Foles likes to throw to those big receivers downfield. I like Alshon Jeffrey in this matchup, especially with Nick Foles.
Reed, what do you think of Foles, and what is having him in due for guys like Zach Ertz and the other wide receivers on the Eagles?
Yeah, Jeff's right where you like to see Nick Foles as a downfield passer. I agree with him on the game manager part, but I'm agreeing with Steve here. If you look at Zach Ertz, right, he is the position to play here. Like he's most expensive, right, or second most expensive on the slate. So if you want to fade the guy, so be it. Like I get it, but Houston is 29th per DVOA against tight ends. That is their weak spot. Foles, this last game, right, they're decreased in pass play percentage by 11% over the season. They were throwing the ball like 61% of the time. Last game, they only threw about 50%. And so whether you want to call him a game manager or not, there was a clear-cut plan to not make Foles throw that much. And I don't think he's going to go for 77% completion against his Houston team. If you want to target anyone, to me, it'll be Sproles out of the backfield. If he gets more targets, if he gets more snaps, his target share goes up about 9-10% when Foles is in. If it's not Jeffrey, where I think a lot of people are going to flock to this guy after that big game, it's no one else. It downgrades the receivers as a whole. To me, it keeps Ertz the same.
Yeah, Todd Gurley owners right now a little nervous because he was sidelined for part of the Rams' last game with inflammation in his knee, which is why L.A. went out and signed C.J. Anderson for some depth. Dr. Pete Gurley, not expected to miss time, but would you think rest would be the best idea right now for him, especially when dealing with a lingering knee problem?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, inflammation just doesn't happen for nothing. There's a reason it's happening. Either it's because he's strained the knee, either he's overusing the knee, or there's some early arthritis. And so anytime you have inflammation, taking time off to get it to rest helps. Now, he can obviously get a steroid shot to help quiet this down, and that certainly can help. And so maybe that's why it doesn't expect to miss time. But the bottom line is rest certainly makes sense, and get him ready for postseason play and rest him, in my opinion, is what you really want to do.
Yeah, so guys, if the Rams do decide to rest Gurley at some point, would you just fade the entire Rams running game, or would you look at any of his backup options, Reed?
I mean, yeah, John Kelly presents some upside, but at that price tag, his projected ownership is now coming in at around 5 to 8%. And it's early in the week, so that could increase. And obviously with the news that he should be playing, McVay said that Gurley did feel better today, obviously depresses that a little bit. But if they do decide to fade him, like I'm not going to these running backs because we just don't know, right? And that Cardinals defense, I think there are places to attack, especially with the wide receiver 2s and 3s. Not so much the ones, obviously, with Patrick Peterson shadowing either Brandon Cooks or Robert Woods, whoever that is. So for me, I'd rather go towards someone like Elijah McGuire. So I'm not necessarily going down that low. I mean, Duke Johnson presents some upside in that game, obviously, with Cincinnati being one of the worst against pass-catching running backs. But I don't think you need to go that low. I don't think you need to attack this game. It's not like this is a huge implied game total for these guys coming in against a Cardinals defense that's not really playing for much other than to knock these guys off, knock off a division foe. So I'm not really looking at the Rams running backs. The lowest I'm probably going is Elijah McGuire.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals have allowed a league-worst 17 touchdowns to opposing running backs. So kind of whoever's in there for Gurley, do you still think they might just be in a good position, Steve?
I mean, it's a really good matchup, and this is a game that the Rams are favored to win and win big. I mean, John Kelly at 4,000 against the Cardinals just kind of feels like one of those free squares this week. Everybody got so giddy and excited when Spencer Ware ended up being the guy to play that week, and he was so cheap. And this kind of feels like the same situation. Obviously, we want to hear more news about Gurley as the week goes on, but I mean, Dr. P has more certifications than I do, but like, why wouldn't you rest the guy at this point? Like, what are you playing for at this juncture? Like, you don't need to run Gurley out there. You need Gurley to win those playoffs games. So I feel like this could end up being a tough fade. I mean, Kelly at 4,000 makes a lot of things fit this week. And for someone that's, you know, in a game where he's favored, where the Rams are favored and they could be getting a lot of opportunities, that's a tough one for me to fade. So, I mean, definitely as the week goes on, it will play a little bit more. We'll get some news, but I think that's just something you have to keep at least consider.
Jeff, do you agree?
Is this look? We don't even know if C.J. Anderson is going to be active or not. If he's active and he end up splitting snaps with John Kelly, it's a big mess. And then if all three of them are active, you can't really play Gurley because they're probably going to rest him. So my initial reaction is fade them. The other thing is John Kelly's not that good. He couldn't even get active for backup status above Malcolm Brown. So just consider that. Now, if he's 4,000, if he's like the only running back active, it changes things. But at this point, we just don't have enough information. I'm inclined to actually play the Rams passing game because I really think they get back on track here. But we're just going to have to wait till later in the week to get more information.
Dr. P, we got one more for you. Chargers wide receiver Keenan Allen left Thursday's game with a hip injury, which is reportedly a hip pointer. As sports fans, you hear hip pointer a lot. But what exactly does that mean, and what's the recovery window? Please help me.
Yeah, so it's kind of a misnomer because when you say your hip pointer, you think it's really your hip. But if you feel where your belt line comes right over your pelvis, right on the edge of either side of your hips, that's where a nerve dives down and supplies the outer part of your thigh. And so if you have anything that hits that area and squeezes on the nerve, that causes pain there, and that's called a hip pointer. So it's the nerve being damaged right in that spot. Depending on how damaged it is, you can take a week to recover or up to 4 weeks to recover. You don't need surgery for this, but you just need time. In pain, then you're out. So that's what we've seen with Allen. He's struggling because of the pain.
Yeah, that does sound painful. So
Yes,
if Allen can't play because of that pain, what value opens up on the Chargers offense, Jeff?
Well, first of all, I knew what a hip pointer was.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, bud. All right, big shot. Big shot.
If you lose time and you have time, I need an assistant.
Oh, hey.
Oh,
My next thing was going to be I wouldn't have been able to explain it even like.
great, good. Which is why we asked Dr. P.
Anyways, back to something I do know, and that's the backup wide receivers on the Chargers. I like Tyrell Williams a lot in this fight. I think everyone's just going to go to Mike Williams, the hot rookie. But Tyrell Williams got 12 targets last season. He's been there with Phillip Rivers. He's been in this situation before, too, where Keenan Allen's been a little bit banged up, and he's really paid off. I just think that you look at the two, he's the more polished receiver right now. He's more likely to get into that high-volume row. The other value is obviously Travis Benjamin, who's still been getting targets, should get a little bit bump up if Allen were to miss.
Who are you looking at on this Chargers offense, Steven?
Well, Jeff wouldn't have time to be an assistant. He has to pick up people during the show. That's his Uber.
That's true. That's true.
You know, Mike Williams is a name that jumps right out at me, and I'm surprised Jeff wasn't so high on him. You know why? Because Rivers loves him in the red zone. He has the highest target share besides Keenan Allen at 19%. And granted, we haven't seen a game without Allen this year, which honestly is kind of surprising. So we don't really know who's going to end up moving to the slot, but Williams has played a decent amount of time in there, and that would definitely be a matchup you want to exploit. This Ravens defense has been solid against the pass, but Brandon Carr has been the exception of that, and that's who's primarily covering the slot. And he's $3,200 cheaper than Keenan Allen this week, so you get a massive savings on that as well. I don't know why you wouldn't go to the guy that Rivers likes to go to other than Allen in the red zone and go with
Well, he might actually have to face a good cornerback this week, Steve, so, you know.
Yeah, I just said probably not.
Reed, we'll let you chime in.
Yeah, I just like how Steve's wearing a Christmas sweater. He just goes after Jeff in the holiday spirit.
La 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 la.
Like I agree with Jeff that in terms of target share, Tyrell Williams, it does get that bump if Allen is out. But Steve's right here. It's Mike Williams. And if you look at the Ravens in their losses, where the RB1 or the RB has a good game, it's really a balanced approach with the wide receivers also doing well. If you look at Mixon with 22 total touches in week 2, Uzomah and Eifert, totaled for 8 receptions and 113 yards. Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, these guys have done well. DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. When the teams against the Ravens have a balanced approach where they're featuring number ones, which in this case would be Mike Williams, especially in the red zone, that means fantasy production. A lot of people are going to go away from this because of that Baltimore defense, because they see that red number, because of what they've done in the past. But if you have a balanced approach to this Ravens defense, you can score if you're a wide receiver 1. So I like Mike Williams in this spot.
Alrighty, guys. Dr. P, you are free to go. Go save some lives.
Yeah.
The rest of you, hang tight because we're going to look at some, looks like game totals, team totals coming up right after NBA Price Check.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. And believe it or not, LeBron James would like to see Anthony Davis in a Lakers uniform. No doubt. When asked about the possibility of the Pelicans' big man one day coming to LA, James said it would be, quote, amazing. Davis is having another stellar season, stuffing the stat sheet, averaging 28 points, over 12 rebounds, around 5 assists, nearly 3 blocks, and 1.7 steals. It's a mouthful. He's under contract for 1 more season and has a player option for the 2020-2021 season, but odds are he'll enter free agency if he ever gets on the doorstep. That said, there are plenty of teams that will try to acquire him before he ever reaches free agency. The Lakers have been the team linked with Davis ever since the forward switched to LeBron's agent. If LA was to swing a deal for Davis, however, it would involve them shipping out a bevy of their young talent. And as for another team to keep an eye on, the Boston Celtics, who have plenty of assets to ship to New Orleans. They've reportedly been hawking the Pelicans for Davis's services, but cannot acquire him until the offseason per NBA rules. It does take 2 to tango, however, so it will be interesting to see if New Orleans ever decides to ultimately cut bait with Davis.
Time to hit the hardwood. We're playing some NBA Price Check with RotoWire's Alex Barutha, DFS expert Jeff Eisenman, and DK Live's Alex Reclean.
All right, will these players return value on their salary tonight? Steph Curry coming in at $9,500, $100 more than teammate Kevin Durant as the Warriors take on the Jazz in Utah this evening. Does Steph deserve to be outpriced or outpriced KD in tonight's slate, Mr. Barutha?
I think so. I mean, ever since Curry has come back, Durant's upside has kind of taken a dip. But Curry's put up 60 DraftKings points in multiple games since then. I do like him in this matchup, and just based on what we've seen recently, I think that putting Curry above Durant price-wise is completely fair.
Hey, Jeff, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, which one you going with?
Nah, I'm going with Durant because I'm looking at the body of work, and everyone said Steph was playing so great before his injury, but yet Kevin Durant still on average scores higher than Stephen Curry, so I think this is a little too reactionary. If I'm looking at the body of work and making my pick, I'm still going to take Kevin Durant at $100 less.
Alex Reclean, Steph Curry, does he deserve to be $100 more than his teammate Kevin Durant? Has he earned it?
Yeah, Alex's are clearly smarter in general. So I'm going to have to side with Alex here. Steph has outscored KD over his last 5 games. The Jazz are below average against opposing, in terms of 3-point percentage allowed. Not the most predictive stat, but still relevant. And Steph attempts twice as many threes as KD. But also just look at the Jazz personnel. You'd much rather start a point guard against the Jazz than a big wing or a big. So for tonight only, I'm still with Steph.
I need other Jeff back.
Okay.
We'll work on that for you, big guy.
Yeah. All right. Reclean, Kawhi Leonard has at least 44 DK points in each of his last 5 games and is 9,200 as the Raptors host the Pacers. It's his second lowest salary in the last 10 games. So is this a bargain?
It's definitely a bargain. I think it is relevant that the Pacers have the best defense by far over the last 10 games and the second best defense on the season. It's relevant that they play at a slow pace. It's a little bit less relevant, but worth pointing out that their DVP against, shooting guard, small forward is rough. But the price is great for Kawhi. He's scored at least 27 points in 9 of 11 games going back to the day before Thanksgiving. His usage percentage is over 30% in that time. There's a lot to like about Kawhi still.
Barutha, 9,200 for Kawhi. You like it?
Yeah, I do like this price. I mean, there are concerns about the pace of the Pacers, I guess. But with Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka out, Jonas Valanciunas still out, I think a lot of the usage has to run through Kawhi Leonard as well as Fred VanVleet, who we've seen get a bump. But yeah, at 9,200 with the kind of production we've seen him put up and all the injuries that the Raptors are dealing with, I want him in most of my lineups tonight.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, same thing that everyone's saying. Pacers defense is a strong defense. They only gave up 92 to the Cavs last night. But, even in a game where the Raptors only put up 86 against the Nuggets recently, Kawhi still had a big statistical game. So I think this is the right price. I'll still take him at 9,200. If it was higher, I'd steer away from it.
Well, hey, Jeffrey, Memphis center Marc Gasol, $7,500, his second lowest salary in his last 10 games. He's scored at least 30 DK points in his last 4, averaging 40 a game this season. Do you like that price tonight with the Grizzlies on the road at the Trailblazers?
I don't like it because this is a great year for centers all of a sudden. Everyone said, the center was kind of dead, and now you have guys, when you have guys like Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid and Andre Drummond and even Blake Griffin now in that center spot, if you drop down to Marc Gasol, who's a great player but not quite on a fantasy level of those guys, you're leaving a lot of points on the table, so I'm not taking Marc Gasol.
Rick Clean, do you want Gasol on your roster for this price?
For me, the answer is no, but it's not about the price. Whenever I see Nurkic as the matchup for a traditional center, I check their history against each other because he's just one of those weird players who some players react well to and some players don't. And Gasol's track record against Nurkic is dreadful. He has scored less than 10 points and has less than 7 rebounds in his last 3 matchups against Nurkic. It's a weird stat line. It's not what you'd expect, but it has me worried.
Hey, Barutha, how much faith do you have in Marc Gasol tonight?
Not a lot of faith. I mean, 7,500 is an okay price. I've seen him more expensive on other sites, which is hard to believe. But his performance just really hasn't been what we saw earlier in the year from him. His minutes are down, workload's down, shooting like 36% over the past 9 games. I think the minutes are kind of catching up with him. You can play him, but there are just a ton of other options at center that I would feel way more comfortable with. They have a better shot at getting higher value.
All right, guys, please take a little break, but don't go far. We're going to have you back, and we're also going to have our NFL panel back. But first, here's Pat Mayo.
So the actual rankings, I go Zeke, Gurley, McCaffrey, Chubb, Barkley, Mixon, Kamara, Connor, Melvin Gordon, Marlon Mack. Now, obviously, Connor and Gordon are not set in stone to actually return. It does seem like they're trending in that direction. Do you want to talk about Gurley or McCaffrey first, Jake? I'll leave it up to you. You can produce the show as we go along.
Is that what we can do? We can talk about Gurley first. I don't really have much to say about Christian McCaffrey. I don't think it's an issue.
Okay, so the Gurley thing is he's dealing with knee inflammation. Justin Davis, right? The third string running back?
Yeah, but he has a shoulder
He has a shoulder injury. So they signed C.J. Anderson. And now people are like, do I pick up C.J. Anderson? If I had to hedge, if I owned a Gurley, I would just pick up John Kelly.
Yeah.
That's the move, right?
Yes. You'd have to think that C.J. Anderson is straight up insurance. And they seem pretty comfortable playing a one-back system. Now, that's easy when your one-back is Todd Gurley, granted, but McVay has shown a propensity to be very set in his ways when it comes to formations and player usage patterns. Like, he runs strictly 3 wide receiver sets. He only ever dresses 2 running backs. Like, these are pretty much set in stone across their roster. So I wouldn't expect, not that we get too many Steelers situations thrown our way, but I think the Rams are the closest thing we have to, if they're filling in with a running back, I do think it's going to be in a situation similar to what we saw or how we see Gurley be used.
And if we can, even if it's not going to be John Kelly for 85% of the snaps, even if it's John Kelly for 60% of the snaps against the Cardinals, probably good enough. He wouldn't be number 2 in the ranking.
No.
He would probably be like number 16 or something, but he's someone that you would play.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Okay. As an RB2. And don't forget, C.J. Anderson wouldn't be the first person we've seen sign as a running back either not even active for his first game with a new team or just not get many touches at all. It's the easiest position to transition, but you still have to know the playbook and you still have to know what's happening in each formation. So maybe if it is like Justin Davis is out and Gurley is out, maybe CJ Anderson sees 5-10 touches at the most.
Yeah, not worth picking up, though.
No.
Christian McCaffrey, I have at number 3. I think he's going to be fine, but there is the possibility that Cam is just shut down later in the week.
I think it's a strong possibility.
Now that they're out of the playoffs, do we have to bump down Christian McCaffrey?
I wouldn't.
Even to, would you play, Kamara or McCaffrey? That's probably not a choice anyone has to make. You're riding McCaffrey.
Yeah, look, I understand, and I'm with you. I think the implied team total of the Panthers would take a hit if Cam Newton's not playing. Obviously, that would impact the possible touchdown upside of Christian McCaffrey, but we're talking about someone who's played 100% of the snaps in 5 consecutive games. You just don't get that. He's locked in for 20 touches. He's proven he can run in between the tackles. Maybe there's an extra safety or whatever, but
we have a worst case scenario. Just at worst case, he probably has what Saquon Barkley had last week, and at that point, you're still not benching him for a Kalen Ballage. You're just not going that far to where you're going to have to bench Christian McCaffrey for anybody.
All right, we're back here on The Sweat, as are Reed Fowler and Steve Buchanan and Dr. Selene Parekh's new assistant, Jeff Ulrich.
Woo!
Yes!
Really excited. So,
Dr. Hip Pointer.
Before we get into any more doctoring stuff, let's play NFL high or low. Team totals edition. So are these individual team totals too high or too low for Week 16? Steve, the Saints hosting the Steelers, have their team total set at 29.5. Too high, too low, just right?
By the way, I want to point out this is not just any Christmas sweater. This is a Godzilla sweater.
Oh! Yeah, slate approved all night long, kid.
So I really want to like this total, but, this is a team that's averaging just 16 points over their last 3 games. And Pittsburgh isn't a defense that we really see teams blow out against. I mean, they allow an average of 22.7 points per game, which ranks right in the middle of the league, 15th. It's just really hard to like the Saints at this point. And you feel like if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to do it through the air because the Steelers' run defense has been absolutely fantastic. And that's not really how the Saints win games anymore. They do it with the ground and pound. They do it with Alvin Kamara. They do it with Mark Ingram. Going through the air with Drew Brees has not been their way to win games really for the past year and a half, it feels like. So that just feels way too high for me at this juncture. Just really hard to trust them at this point.
Too high, too low, Reed?
I think this is just right. Steve's right. Yes, the Saints do. They bolster the 3rd most run-heavy offense, and I get that. But those last 3 games were on the road, and we know Drew Brees can't really perform well on the road. At home, over the last 3 weeks, the last 3 games, this team is averaging 41 points. So when you put those 2 and 2 together, yeah, they're going to have to pass. So to Steve's credit, he said that they're going to have to pass, and I think they do. You're not going to be able to run against the Steelers. I think you like the Michael Thomas effect here. They've been having trouble finding their wide receiver 2. I think they are missing Ted Ginn, which I never thought I would say about Ted Ginn, but the Saints are missing their wide receiver 2 here. A guy who can stretch the field. Traquan Smith, a guy that I've been high on, Emerson, hasn't really performed up to snuff. So you look at this passing offense. Yes, it has been down over the past few weeks, but getting these guys back at home, I think this is just right.
Jeff, 29.5 points for New Orleans. Too high, too low, just right?
Well, I mean, here's some context. New Orleans has gone over 29.5 points in 5 of their 6 home games this year. Only one they didn't was another AFC North opponent. It was Cleveland. But the Pittsburgh defense, Steve's right. The Pittsburgh defense has been really good. They've only allowed over 30 points against them in 2 games this year, 2 games in the whole schedule. So, and that was one of them was Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to take this is a little too high as well. I think the Pittsburgh's defense is going to hold up better than people think. I still like this game for fantasy purposes, but I do like the Pittsburgh offense better, which is maybe going to be a little contrarian. So I'll say too high, I guess.
Guys, the highest total for a road team is also set at 29.5. That would be the Rams in Arizona. The Cards defense isn't that bad, I guess. And the Rams dealing with some injuries, Todd Gurley most notably. Is this way too high here, Steven?
I mean, this is almost the same situation now with the Saints, except now the run defense is bad, and the passing game is where the Cardinals are really strong this year. I mean, the Rams are potentially without their best running back. I mean, we really need to get more information on what they're going to do with Gurley. And just for that reason alone, I think this total is too high. I mean, 30 points is a lot to put up for a team that's averaging over just 19 over the past 3 weeks. Now they might be potentially without their biggest playmaker, or maybe not even at 100%. And the defense is pretty good through the air. I mean, do I think they can score about 20 to 25 points in this game without a healthy Gurley? Absolutely. But 30, I mean, that's really kind of pushing it on a game that they really might need to rely on the run a little bit more. And the run is a huge question mark at this point. So here on Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern, probably not. Maybe later on in the week we could change that. But for now, I think it's still high.
Yeah, Reed, what do you think? Because Sean McVay saying today, we will not risk Todd Gurley's playoff availability.
Yeah, one thing you like about McVay is he's been pretty transparent with his injury reports and his players. And so it gives us an idea to start talking about these things. And I agree with Steve here. I think this is too high. If you look at the Rams, they're averaging about 28 points on the road. And a lot of their offense obviously runs through Todd Gurley. Play actions, right? You have to be able to respect that run game. And the Cardinals, they're giving up about 25 points at home. And if you take away that 45-burger to the Broncos, they haven't allowed a lot of defenses to score a lot of points on these guys. I will say the pace of play for both of these teams, the Rams are second in pace. And if you look at the Cardinals, they're about 8th when they're at ±6 in that scoring differential. So they do speed up their play. But it's Josh Rosen, and this defense is better than average. So I'm going to agree with Steve here. I think this is too high.
Jeff, too high, too low for the Fighting C.J. Andersons?
This is way too low. I mean, all of a sudden the Rams are like, they're just nothing. They're a useless team, right? Look, this is an NFL season of ebbs and flows. Good teams go through bad stretches too. The Patriots had a couple bad losses. Then what did they do? They beat Miami by like 40 points. I mean, this Rams team is so much better than Arizona. And I think that's the thing. It's the Arizona Cardinals. I don't care if they don't have Todd Gurley. This is just a get-right spot for the Rams offense. It's going to be a scrimmage, in my opinion. And don't forget, Aaron Donald could score 2 defensive touchdowns because the Arizona Cardinals offense is pathetic. So, no, I think this is too low. I think the Rams get over 30 here.
Oh, well, Jeff, the Patriots are heavily favored over Buffalo and have a team total of 28.5. Too high, too low. The Pats have had some weird games lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this one was a tough one. I mean, New England is another team. Has been really good at home. I think they've actually met or exceeded this total in like every single home game or every one except one. I'm still going to say it's a little bit too high. I'm going to give the Bills a little bit of credit here. I like New England to win big, but it's going to be cold. Sorry, Steve, but it's true. Might slow down the offense a little bit. The Bills just pace down, and their defense isn't horrible. So I'll say they hold them to like 28 points instead of 30.
Sorry, Steve, it's going to be cold. So what do you think?
That's a little
perfect segue.
So stupid. Of course it's going to be. Oh, here we go. I'll wait till you're done. You guys done back there? Okay, good. I mean, look, let me get to my points now. I mean, the Bills have a strong defense. There's no way around that. I mean, they've held opposing quarterbacks to under 200 passing yards 8 times this season. They were about to do it 6 weeks in a row until Matt Stafford powered his way to 208 passing yards last week. And, you know, the Patriots do rush the ball a good amount. They have about a 60-40 split passing and rushing plays on the year. So they could get some opportunities there, but it's not like we've seen Tom Brady really lighting up opposing defenses lately either. I mean, really, with the exception of that loss against the Dolphins, he's been pretty mediocre at best. So I'm not sure we can tab him for, 29 points in this game. I think I want to give a little bit more respect to the Buffalo defense than they're getting right now. And like I said, holding opposing quarterbacks to under 200 yards 8 times that season, that's no small feat right there, especially against someone who's been mediocre in Tom Brady. So, again, I think it's too high.
Reed, 28.5 for New England. What do you think?
Didn't Jeff just say that a guy like Tom Brady and the Patriots have just like trounced a team like Miami, and this season is ebbs and flows? Of course, This is Tom Brady and the Patriots, and it's New England at home. I think this is too low. Look, I get Buffalo is a strong defense. They've only given up about 22 points on the road, but the Patriots are scoring 34 points at home. Jeff's mentioned it, right? This team is really good at home. I will say they do have a more balanced approach when it comes to run-pass plays. They both are probably the 6th lowest pass play percentage at home, but they're the 4th highest in red zone opportunities at home. And so even though they might be running the ball, they're still scoring at a high clip. So I think this is too low. I think the Patriots score over this.
All right, as if we're not sweaty enough already, we will work up a sweat with you three coming up. But first, it is opening face-off in the NHL with Ben Zwyman.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. And it's that time of the year when teams have to make some tough calls on players in preparation for 2019. It's starting to impact a couple of backfields in the NFC North. Both Aaron Jones of the Packers and Kerryon Johnson of the Lions have been placed on injured reserve, ending their seasons. With Jones out of the picture in Green Bay, that'll thrust Jamal Williams, and it will be the main man in the backfield. Last week against Chicago, Williams played well, totaling 55 yards on the ground with a touchdown. He tacked on 4 catches for 42 yards. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll have pretty favorable matchups against both the Jets and Lions, who are both mediocre against the run. And as it relates to Johnson's season coming to a close, the leader in the Lions' backfield isn't as clear as Green Bay's. Detroit has LeGarrette Blount, Zach Zenner, and Theo Riddick. Zenner saw the most carries in Week 15 and found the end zone, but it was Riddick who was the more productive back on the ground and is a factor in the passing game for Matt Stafford as well.
All right, we're going to put this show on ice right now with our NHL panel, which is just Ben Zwyman today. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, there you go. Party fingers. I like it.
Okay,
How's it
opening
going?
face-off.
Going great, thank you.
You pick between the top options at each position. Let's start at center, Ben. It's a small 2-game slate tonight, so not a lot of choices, but the 2 most expensive options are Colorado's Nathan MacKinnon at $8,000 versus Montreal, and the Penguins captain Sidney Crosby, $7,200 in a rivalry game at Washington.
Oh, that's your Washington squad, girlfriend.
So answer carefully. Who you got, Ben?
Yeah, originally I was gonna go with McKinnon, but I'm all in narrative. Let's go with Crosby against the Caps and Ovechkin. Crosby's been very cold lately. 6-game goal drought. That's his longest goal drought since earlier in the season. But Sid in his career has been very good against the Caps. 21 goals, 66 points in 47 games. That's 1.4 points per game, a strong mark. I also like that Crosby's price is way down, $900 since last week. Plus, the Caps aren't playing tight defensively. They're playing these wide-open, fast-paced games, which should play well for Crosby and the Pens tonight.
Benjamin, in the wing department, pretty much have to make this decision whenever the Avs are on the slate. Which top-line Colorado winger do you choose? Mikko Rantanen, $7,300, or Gabriel Landeskog, $500 cheaper?
Yeah, I don't really see much of a difference here. I'll go with Landeskog just because he's the cheaper wing, but really, all season long, you're going to want to stack this Avalanche top line. Landeskog has been a bit hotter lately, 5 goals in his past 4 games. Plus, he has a higher average ice time and is averaging more shots in that short time frame. But really, again, you're going to want to stack this line. Nathan MacKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, especially on a slate like tonight, you only have 2 games. So if this line pops off, this is the GPP stack that you really want to have. Outside of maybe targeting the Caps first line with Ovechkin and Backstrom in that first power play for the Capitals, I really think the Avalanche, this is the line that you're going to want to stack and go with tonight.
So time to talk defense, and on a short slate, it makes sense that 2 of the higher-priced defensemen are on the same team. So you got Shea Weber at $5,000 and Jeff Petrie at $4,600. So who do you like better?
Yeah, this is interesting because when Shea Weber returned from his injury, he sort of cut into Petrie's ice time a lot. So Weber took a lot of ice time away from him, took a lot of shots, took a lot of blocks away from him. They're both on the first power play. I don't mind stacking both of them because both of them are cheap, and the Habs are probably going to be low-owned because that's more of the GPP play tonight is the Habs on the road against the Avalanche. Maybe I'll lean Petrie just because his price is a little lower. He's been producing more points lately. Weber has the higher shots plus blocks percentage. So again, maybe a safer floor for Weber, but Petrie's got the price. So I'll go with him.
All right, and Nat, looking at the rivalry game between the Pens and Caps, Braden Holtby, $7,800 against Matt Murray, $7,500. Both have been confirmed. They will be between the pipes tonight. Take your pick, Benjamin.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Holtby. The Capitals have been the better team lately. The Penguins have been very inconsistent. They're losing to bad teams. The Capitals are not a bad team. The Capitals are great at home, 10-4-2 on the season. Pens 6-5-4 on the road. On a short slate, you're going to want to get that win out of your goaltender. If you don't pick up the goaltender that has the highest score tonight, generally your lineup isn't going to pop off. So yeah, less margin for error. Holtby's been very good, not very good lately. Let me correct myself.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Last time he played the Penguins, 41 saves, only allowed 1 goal, had over 10 DK fantasy points. Again, the Capitals are just playing better hockey right now. Holtby's price is also pretty good, $7,800. Philip Grubauer of the Avs is the highest price goalie at 8,100. Not really crazy about that. But, yeah, let's go with Opie.
So check yourself before you wreck yourself. I like that move, Ben. But let's get that slate-approved pick, please. Who's your lock for tonight's slate?
Okay, before they give me the stamp, don't do the stamp, all right? Hornquist, 5,700. If he plays, he's a game-time decision. I like him. But I'm going to have to take this time to shout out my boy, Phil the Thrill Kessel, at 6,100.
Stamp him!
Yeah. His price is way down. I like the Pens if that game really is a shootout, if it's a track meet, if you're seeing a lot of goals. I like that the Penguins forwards, the prices are way down. Like I said, Hornquist, if he plays, 5,700. Kessel's at 6,100. Malkin's at 6,000, which is pretty insane considering the player he is. So, yeah, Kessel, his shot volume is very high. I like that. He gives you a nice floor. I think he scores tonight. He's played well against the Caps in the playoffs and in the regular season for the Penguins. Give me Phil the Thrill.
Ben, that was great. Go enjoy your night. We appreciate the help. Again,
no, you're great, Emerson.
Thank you. Don't forget about, this young lady. Did you hear it? No, they already cut his mic off. I'm sure he thinks you're great, too.
He definitely thinks I'm great.
Speaking of great, you had a really good interview with Nick Eatman of the Dallas Cowboys earlier today, so I'd love to hear some of the questions that you asked him.
Oh, my God. Nick Eatman of DallasCowboys.com is here to give us the scoop on what's going on in Dallas. So, Nick, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Now, not a great week for the Cowboys, to say the least. They got shut out by the Colts, ending a 5-game win streak. What do you think went wrong in that game?
Is everything, is that a bad answer?
You can say everything.
I mean, everything. I mean, they didn't win the coin toss, and then after that, it was downhill as well. I mean, they didn't win anything, really. It was the worst game that I can remember seeing from this team, especially with so much on the line. And it starts, you can say it starts with the offense because they got shut out, and because you can't win a game in this league if you get shut out. We all know that. But the defense has been carrying this team all year long, and they just did not come to play at all. They were getting gashed in the run game. They couldn't get to Andrew Luck. They couldn't cover in the secondary. So it was their worst performance, coupled with an offense that wasn't scoring, coupled with the special teams that couldn't make a field goal. Bad all the way around. And I'll say this: it will get better against Tampa. It has to.
Now, you're boots on the ground, so what vibe did you get from the players after the game? Like, was this a big blow, or are they picking themselves up and already moving on?
Both, actually, because, yes, it was. I mean, they had a chance. They had NFC East Caps there with boxes on the sideline waiting to, to break out, and they played really flat from the start. And so I think it was more of a wake-up call. There's been a lot of talking about, nicknames and stuff. The defense hasn't won for themselves, the Hot Boys. And, we got players selling apparel here and there on their own websites and all this stuff. And I think it was like, hey, our backs have been against the wall for 5 weeks. We got off that wall. Let's get back to that wall. Let's get and play like the team that was, scratching and clawing for the last 5 weeks to get to this point. Let's play like that team. So I think it's both is the answer.
Yeah, so the Cowboys are hosting the Bucs this week, a team whose offense looked formidable early in the season, but obviously they've sputtered in recent weeks. So what do the Cowboys have to do to make sure that September-October Bucs team doesn't show up to this game?
Well, the Bucs are interesting. You look at them from stats, and I think they're third in the NFL in offense, and they were first earlier in the week. But they don't score well and then down in the red zone. So the same thing that I think the game plan was for the Colts was try to make them a one-dimensional team, even though they like to throw it more than they like to run. You have to make sure you shut down that run completely, put them in third and long. That did not happen last week against the Colts. They made Marlon Mack look like, LaDainian Tomlinson out there. And so they can't have that happen. I think Barber's their running back. You can't do that. You have to make them a team that has to throw it, put the ball in Jameis's hands. He'll make some plays. He'll throw some to the other team as well. And so I think you have to just make sure that they do not have, a dual threat. They got to be one-dimensional.
So if they do win on Sunday, they're going to clinch a playoff spot after missing the postseason last year. So if they do make it, do you like their chances to get their first playoff win since 2014?
I do. I mean, because they play so well at home, and that's the thing about this format. You know, you win your division, you get a home game. So they would most likely, I think, going to be the 4th seed if they get into the playoffs. They're going to play the 5th seed. It looks like it would be Seattle right now. You never know. It could be Minnesota, Philadelphia, whoever can jump into that spot. They play so well at home. They've beaten the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, the Saints, at home. And so I think that, yes, they'll have a good chance to do that, but there'll be a lot of pressure on that game because even if you get into the playoffs, you know, this coaching staff who has been under fire a lot, you can't lose at home in the playoffs, especially, you know, to get to this point and all the stuff that they've gone through to get here. You know, there'll be a lot of pressure riding on that game. It'll be a tough game, but yeah, I do like their chances because they are playing so well at AT&T Stadium.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. Nick, thank you for joining us. You can see more of Nick on DallasCowboys.com.
Thank you.
Hey, great job with that, by the way.
I really can do it all. Now let's welcome back our NBA panel. We have RotoWire's Alex Barutha, DFS expert Jeff Eisenband, and DK Live's Alex Racleen. Now, before we get into Tears of Joy, Racleen, is there any late breaking news, top picks from DK's Tears contest that you got your eyes on? Who maybe have some injury news?
Yeah.
So Randall and Mirotic and Ian Clark are all out for the Pelicans. Darius Miller will start in his place. He's a little bit interesting at 3,600. Marcus Morris is out. We don't know who will replace him in the starting lineup, but that could be interesting. And the biggest news of all, Jared Bayless upgraded to questionable. Do you know what team he currently plays for? Because I would not be surprised if most of our listeners had to go look that up right now.
Not really sure, to be honest.
Timberwolves.
Okay,
great.
cool.
Nope, everyone was asking.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone, Kyle Lowry's out again. We'll fix the mistake from last night. Jordan Clarkson is in and Delly is out.
Welcome back, Jordan.
Nikola Vucevic is out for personal reasons, so that means Mo Bamba is getting his first career NBA start tonight. Also, because of suspension, no Dennis Schroeder or Raymond Felton for the Thunder.
Wow, okay. Alex B., I feel like we touched on a lot. Anything else to add here?
Add something, babe.
We did. I mean, Mike Conley's kind of still a game-time decision. So is Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, if he's out, that could be like a Damari Carroll, Jared Dudley kind of a situation. Mike Conley missed the last game, and I didn't feel like anybody really stepped up other than Omri Caspi, which I don't expect to happen again. So maybe a Shelvin Mack, Garrett Temple as GPP options. But, yeah, I think those are the only two guys that we're kind of still waiting on here.
All right, Mr. Barutha, let's look at some of the bottom tiers here. Need your help making a pick. Tier 5. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I do like De'Aaron Fox or Derrick Rose in this tier. Derrick Rose with the absence of Jeff Teague. I mean, we've seen what Rose can do when he has the ball in his hands for an extended period amount of time. Tibbs likes to go with him there. And then Fox, I mean, De'Aaron Fox can put up 50 fantasy points on any given night. He's been on fire lately. The matchup is not ideal. But when you're talking about guys who have 50-ish fantasy point upside, I would trust him maybe more than anyone else to reach that in tier 5.
Jeff, this is when people at home really start to pay attention to what you have to say. So please help them with tier 5.
Yeah, I went with De'Aaron Fox here. If you're looking at the stats, and a lot of people are like, why did he just play 6 minutes last game? Well, Dave Yeager pulled something where he kind of benched all of the starters for bad plays. So I'd expect De'Aaron Fox to come out flying out of the gates. And I know Alex just mentioned, the Russell Westbrook matchup maybe not being that great, but I just mentioned the 2 backup point guards are out with suspension tonight. So, we want to say Russell Westbrook will play a lot of defense, but I could see him maybe if he's playing 40-something minutes tonight, leaning a little too far on the offensive end. And De'Aaron Fox really wants to prove himself after a mistaken game last time.
Mr. Racleen, you also feeling Mr. Fox?
I mean, it's honestly a kind of loaded tier. There aren't a lot of bad options here. I've definitely looked at Fox, but I wanted to go with Steven Adams. Love the matchup of anyone against the Kings, especially a big man against the Kings. Kings are super fast-paced, and they're one of the worst teams in the league at rebounds. Also, what's more fun than rooting for Steven Adams?
I was going to say, that man is a national treasure.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
International.
International treasure.
Well
Very
said.
true.
Nailed it.
All right, Racleen, what about if you're looking in tier 6? Who looks good to you here?
This one I struggled a little bit more with, but I went with Jason Tatum against the Suns. I thought Tatum looked better during the Celtics' recent win streak when they were playing with their rotation changes. His role in the rotation didn't really change. His usage rate ticked up a little bit. And part of the reason that the Celtics were playing well is because their schedule was easy. Well, it doesn't get much easier than against the Suns. So I'm looking for the Celtics to keep that streak going today.
Jeff, tier 6, who do you like?
Yeah, I also had Tatum partly because Marcus Morris, who's there in tier 6, he's out, so steer away from him. That's a bad Suns team coming into Boston, a banged-up Celtics team that if they get a lead, they're going to take some of the veteran old men like Kyrie Irving out and delegate to Jason Tatum. But I also did look a little bit at Klay Thompson's never a bad option in tier 6, and Chris Middleton also is not a bad option in tier 6.
Wrap us up here, Barutha.
I like Buddy Hield here because the Kings are just missing a ton of players. I mean, Bogdanovich is out, Iman Shumpert's out. They're gonna have to lean on him a lot. But yeah, also Chris Middleton. I'm a Bucks homer, but he hasn't been playing as well as a lot of people, or I guess as we're used to seeing him play, close to an all-star level. And this is a huge matchup in Milwaukee against the Pelicans with Anthony Davis. I think if you're looking for kind of a lower ownership option, I think Chris Middleton might kind of, like I said, fly under the radar in this case.
Dudes, fantastic work. We appreciate it. We got one more block to go. Our NFL panel is back. We're working up a sweat with Reed, Steve, and Jeff next.
I want to talk about the Leonard Fournette situation because, man, oh man, this one hurt. I didn't have Fournette in cash at all, but I actually played a lot of GPPs this past week, way, way, way more than I usually do. And I had Fournette on about 60% of those rosters, made like 30 GPP rosters this week, had Fournette on like 60% of them. So Fournette had 13 touches in the first half and 1 in the second half. He also was asked to return kickoffs for the first time since he was a freshman at LSU. And of course, after the game, it's so sick. After the game, it's revealed that that was the plan, right? The Jags wanted to get an extended look at this kid, Dave Williams, to see if he can be their backup in 2019. Carlos Hyde was inactive. Carlos Hyde's going to be gone from this team. They want to see, hey, can Dave Williams be our backup in 2019? So let's bench Leonard Fournette for the whole second half of this meaningless Week 15 game, and we'll see. And, it's really easy to say, well, we should have known better. We shouldn't trust running backs on dead teams. But if that's the case, then we can't use Mixon. Then we can't use, Eli McGuire. We can't use Saquon Barkley, etc. So look, I mean, for me, the Fournette situation, for me at least, is a reminder that information is always going to be the most important thing. Like data and matchups and player roles, etc., are great for sure. But the edge generated by that is like fractional compared to information. Like these guys, the pregame announcers like Collinsworth and Michaels, they get to like talk to the coaches about like the game plan before the game and stuff. Like that's the nuts, right? It kind of reminds me of that famous line from Wall Street where, Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas tells Sheen, he's like, stop sending me information and start getting me some. Now obviously Douglas was getting into some shady stuff in that movie. That's not what I'm talking about. But to me, information is always going to be king. Like it's worth it. It's worth the time to read beat writers every day. If I had infinite dollars, if I was, #HowRich, I'd actually hire 32 reporters to cover each NFL team every day and look out for and only ask for fantasy information, period. Like, that's your job. You cover the team like a rabid dog every single day, but only for fantasy information. So, like, there's no way my Jaguars guy who I hired wouldn't find this out before the game. They're about Fournette. Like, the regular Jags reporters just weren't looking for it. They didn't care. They weren't asking for it. They didn't have the sources to find it out, or they didn't ask their sources, but the fantasy reporter would. So, yeah, maybe Fournette would have busted anyways if he played the second half, but he just never had a chance with this plan from the Jags. So, given the information that I had at the time, I don't really have too many regrets about it. I mean, that's just life. You can only make the best possible decision with the information in hand. It is what it is.
One last go around with our NFL panel. That would be DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Steve Buchanan. And gentlemen, we're working up a sweat. So you give us a player.
Yeah,
I'll explain it.
All right, thank you.
That you may not have liked on Monday, but has gained some steam in your eyes as a potential good play this week.
This sounds like good advice that they're about to deliver. We will see, and we'll also have you guys See how you
in on
guys
it, yeah.
feel about everyone's picks. Reed, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do Jeff one solid here because I know he loves this guy, and it's not Tevin Coleman. It's gonna be David Johnson. Look, we never like playing David Johnson or playing anyone from this Cardinals offense. Christian Kirk provided some upside in some spots before he got hurt, but if you look at his price, like obviously $900 less, he's going against that Rams team. Again, even if they're down, I think they have to use this guy in the games that they've been double-digit dogs, which I think 3 or 4 games this season. In Kansas City, 28 touches, and the Cardinals covered. Green Bay, 21 touches, and they covered. So there obviously is a recipe for success in Arizona. It's playing David Johnson. I think it's Week 16. I think you have to roll this guy out at this price tag. Again, there's a lot of value, but at the beginning of this week, I'm leaning towards trying to get this guy on my roster as a flex play, just because that upside and in terms of leverage at his price tag and his ownership so far this season is one of the better plays. I know we hasn't seen it more than a couple times that Jeff's called it, but I think in this spot, he has a good chance to hit a pretty high number.
Jeff, how do you...
Yeah, Tevin Coleman is definitely outscoring David Johnson this week, Reed.
Oh, really? Is that all you have for David Johnson? Steve, you don't look impressed with the David Johnson selection here.
Is this Week 16? Is that what we're on now, Week 16?
Yes, it is. I can't confirm.
Okay, we haven't learned this already about David Johnson. Forget it! Like, the Cardinals can't generate any offense. Like, all of a sudden, Week 16, they get like, oh, right, we got to start giving the ball to David Johnson. That's been our problem all season long. Forget it. He's dropped $900 in salary because he's not doing anything when they're on the field. They're not giving him the ball. He's not getting the opportunities. I don't care if they're 5-point dogs, 3,000-point dogs. You're not playing David Johnson this week. He's too expensive. I'll play him when he's on Showdown and he's $200. What, Jeff?
I would. Where
I recommend him, right?
3,000-point dogs. Can you show me that line? Because I'll definitely take whoever's on 3,000-point dogs. Look, this segment is called Working Up a Sweat we don't like. At the beginning of this week, I didn't like David Johnson. When you look at the numbers, the Rams are giving up points. Their DVOA versus running backs is not that good. Their adjusted line yards, not that good. So if you want a spot where he's going to be 2 to 4% owned for a guy who's $6,000, like Dalvin Cook last week when no one liked, he could perform.
All right,
Jeff.
Yes, Steve doesn't look impressed, so whatever. Let's move on here.
Let's work up a sweat with your pick, please, Jeff.
All right. I was actually going to go with Tevin Coleman. I'm just going to stick with the guy I picked, though. It's Allen Robinson at 5,400. And look, I liked Allen Robinson at the start of the week, but then we get to Wednesday here, and you got quarterbacks ruled out, so that pretty much scratches off the Carolina wide receivers. Odell Beckham's still questionable. Julio Jones is now questionable. There's just not a lot of wide receivers that I really like in good position. Then you look at Allen Robinson, and he's led the Bears in targets the last 3 weeks. He's playing well. He leads them in red zone targets. He's going up against the San Francisco secondary that's allowed the most touchdowns to the wide receiver position. They've allowed 11 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers over their last 5 games. It's a horrible secondary. Allen Robinson, Mitch Trubisky going to be in a warm weather game. Sorry, Steve, I got to bring it up, but it's that time of year when, you've got to target these games that aren't going to be affected by the weather. I think Allen Robinson's in a great spot this week, and he's going to be a massive GPP play.
Hey, Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, we're going to rename this segment Tilting Steve on Wednesday. Allen Robinson's great if you're looking to score under 10 DK fantasy points, because that's really all he does. 5,400 this week for that score, so that's really enticing. You look, he has the big playability, but 49ers are not really a defense that allows that. They average about 11.7 yards per reception. He's going to match up with Richard Sherman. Not the best matchup. It's not the greatest one. But look right below him, Alshon Jeffrey's $100 cheaper. Why would you just go to him? Or, somebody else we can talk about in a second once, the wonderful host, by aiming you into it.
Okay, Reed, how do you feel about the Allen Robinson pick?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Steve's right. Allen Robinson hasn't been a guy that's been featured all that much, but the matchup is not bad. San Francisco, not that good against wide receiver ones. They're 19th, right? I like Alshon Jeffrey in that spot a little bit cheaper, but I guess this segment and every segment is all about Steve, so I guess we can go to his.
Okay.
You can play both wide receivers, by the way. You can play Robinson and Jeffrey.
Okay, Steve, go ahead, bud. We got a minute and a half left.
Yeah, I like Calvin Ridley. Obviously, this is more contingent on the health of Julio Jones, but he didn't practice today. I know he might still practice during the week, but he's still averaging about 5 targets a game. It's not overly expensive. It has a good matchup against the Panthers defense. It's certainly not tough through the air. So if Julio Jones ends up being out, I'll like Ridley. If he's in, Julio's in, I wouldn't like Ridley as much. But as of right now, if he's not practicing, I think Ridley's a good option this week.
Somewhere in here, there's an Allen Robinson versus a Calvin Ridley prop bet that Steve and I can make. We'll work on the details as the week goes on.
Free Uber rides if I'm right.
Okay. Reed, this is your opportunity here to kind of give it back to Steven.
Yeah, let's try.
Yeah, I'd like to, but Calvin really is in a good spot. I mean, Carolina against like number twos, they're one of the worst. They're 31st in DVOA against wide receiver twos. And if Julio can't go, which Julio's been this guy who's always been on the injury report, and then it obviously goes. Carolina's defense is bad. If they have nothing to play for, really, and they're rolling out a second string offense, I think this is a good spot for him. So
hard for Ridley to get points when Tevin Coleman's going to score all the touchdowns. So that's my result. Good night, everyone.
Wow. Jeff, couldn't have said it better myself. That's our show. Thank you guys as usual. This is The Sweat. I'm Jessie. He's Emerson. You can watch us weeknights at 6 p.m. Twitter, YouTube, DK Live app, Facebook. Tune in and do all that tomorrow at 6 p.m.
I hear Mr. and Mrs. Claus will be making an appearance on DraftKings Social tomorrow, so I'd keep an eye on Twitter. Ho, ho, ho.